Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. If you like what we do here, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. All right, today we're going to take a look at the trade relationship between India and Iran. We've got a whole bunch of data in front of us, so our mission today is to kind of see what stories we can pull out of these numbers.
It's really amazing what you can find when you dig into the data.
Yeah, for sure. So to start off with, what does the big picture look like for trade between these two countries?
Well, if we look at 2022, India exported about $1.84 billion worth of goods to Iran, and that made Iran India's 45th largest export market
Out of
out of 217.
Okay,
Now, Iran exported 653 million to India,
okay.
making India its fifth largest export market
Out of
out of 127.
okay. I noticed that, Iran exports a lot less in terms of total value to India than vice versa.
Right,
But yet, India is a more important export destination for Iran.
right.
Do you know what that could be about?
Well, it could be a couple things. I mean, it could be because of the size of the economies.
Hmm.
India has a much larger economy overall. Maybe they just buy more stuff. It could also be because of the types of goods being traded.
Okay, so what kinds of things are we talking about? What are these two countries actually trading?
So from India to Iran, the big one is rice.
Okay.
$1.16 billion worth of rice. That's a lot of rice. They also export things like teal and raw sugar. Now, Iran's top exports are a little bit more niche.
Okay.
You've got things like acyclic alcohol derivatives.
Acyclic alcohol derivatives.
Yeah.
I'm not a chemist, but
It's okay, I'll break it down for you. These are basically chemicals that are used in a ton of different products. So
okay.
you're talking about medicines, cosmetics, plastics, you name it. So it looks like Iran's got a pretty sophisticated chemical industry going on.
Interesting. Okay, so it's not just like basic food and stuff. They're making some pretty high-tech ingredients.
Yeah.
Okay, so something else I noticed here in the data was that Iran's exports to India, they've really dropped off in the last few years.
Yeah, it's pretty dramatic, isn't it? I mean, you go from $8.11 billion in 2017 to just $653 million in 2022.
Yeah, what happened there?
Well, there are probably a lot of factors at play here. Global events, economic policies, sanctions, they can all have a big impact on trade.
I guess it makes sense, right? Like the world is constantly changing, and that's bound to affect how countries do business with each other.
For sure.
Okay, so let's dig into a really specific example here. In October of 2024, India had a positive trade balance with Iran of $43.4 million.
Okay.
So that was driven by a huge increase in Indian exports, like 166%.
Wow.
And then at the same time, imports from Iran dropped by like 44%.
That's a big swing.
Yeah. So, what could cause that kind of shift in just a year?
It's tough to say for sure without more information, but sometimes these short-term changes can be because of something very specific. It could be like a seasonal thing.
Oh, okay.
Maybe there was just a huge demand for raw sugar in India during that time.
Oh, interesting. So even these little blips in the data can tell us something interesting.
They can, absolutely.
Okay, one more thing before we move on. I keep seeing this term, economic complexity index. What is that all about?
Right. So the Economic Complexity Index, or ECI, it's basically a way to measure how sophisticated a country's economy is.
Okay.
So the higher the score, the more diverse and complex the economy is, meaning they make a wider variety of products and they're involved in more complex production processes.
That makes sense. So, where do India and Iran stand on this scale?
Well, India has an ECI of 0.64. They're ranked 40th out of 133 countries. Iran, on the other hand, they have a score of 0.072, ranking 60th.
Okay, so that's a pretty big difference. What does that tell us about their economies?
Well, it suggests that India has a more diversified economy. They're producing a wider range of goods. Iran might be more focused on a few key industries.
I see. So how does this difference in ECI scores play into their trade potential? Could it be a limitation or an opportunity for either country?
Well, that's a great question, and that's something we're going to explore further as we continue our deep dive. So stay tuned for that. Having a lower ECI like Iran could make you more vulnerable to global changes in demand.
Right. Like if something happens to one of your main exports, your whole economy could take a hit.
Exactly. So having a variety of things to export can really help cushion those blows.
Makes sense. So one of our sources talked about this thing called potential exports.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually. It's basically a way to look at what else a country could be exporting based on what they already produce.
Oh, I see. So, like, are they missing any opportunities?
Exactly. For example, it said India could potentially export